I'm more curious right now with, well, how'd you get there? How do you go from really nothing to riches? And I don't mean just riches in money, but in your life, right? So what's your story? Give me a little background.
Yeah, so there's a lot of pieces to that, right? As a kid, I think all of us aspire to be more. I grew up in a predominantly Hispanic Catholic family. My parents came from what I would consider to be poverty, and I think they would too. Although they hate saying that because I think they were rich in life. They came from really strong families,
Yes.
and so they always had. And when I say they always had, they always had food on the table, but it wasn't through the means of financial means. In fact, my mom's family, they would literally poach animals, deer, and so forth to have enough meat.
Where were you living? Where was that?
Well, they lived in a small town called Torreon, New Mexico. It's in New Mexico, and it was a small town. My mom came from a family of 11 kids, and her dad passed away when she was 5. My grandfather. Whoa. And so my grandma was stuck working at a post office as a government employee in a little tiny small town with a population of probably under 1,000 people at a post office. And so not very affluent. And my oldest uncle was in the military and was sending his checks home just to help feed them. And the older brothers would literally poach animals to just get enough meat to get through the winter. And as crazy as that sounds, that was like the truth of the way my mom grew up. When they were 18, they shuttled them into Albuquerque on a bus with a suitcase and told them to get to work. And that was their introduction to adulthood. So there was no fluff in my mom's upbringing, and my dad either. My dad grew up in a family. He hates when I tell this story, by the way. So, but I'm going to tell it anyway, because I think it's important, right? And as much as he hates it, I'm blessed to have both my parents still in their 70s, but still blessed to have both of them. And so my dad grew up in a family where his dad was an alcoholic. My brother also battled alcoholism and has been sober for 16 years, but it's a genetic thing and people don't know that. And so there's a gene in your body and your DNA. And anyways, my dad grew up in that type of environment and came from a broken home, had to leave home at 16, didn't graduate high school, had to come back. And when he met my mom, he got his GED and then went to college later. But my dad was the father figure in his house in a family of 5 other kids, so 6 total. And he just had to go fight it for himself at a very young age. And he was subjected to probably a little bit of verbal and physical abuse from his stepfather and some other stuff. And so I don't know the stories there. He hasn't even ever told me those stories, right? It's just from stories that we've had. So I'm proud of my parents because they went through the traditional means of get a job, go get a job, get educated, and work. And my dad worked as an accountant for 32 years. My mom started in bookkeeping, started really driving school buses and working at Levi Strauss in the factories when we were babies. In fact, I still have a scar where she wrecked a school bus when I was 3 years old, and I went under the seat and cut my face under the springs of the seat of the school bus when I was a kid. And she got a job as a bookkeeper, and from a bookkeeper, she's a hustler, that lady. I love that woman because she has advocated for me my whole life, and I'll tell you that she went from that to building nonprofit organizations as the executive director of some of the most renowned nonprofit organizations in the state of New Mexico. Went and opened up chapters in Connecticut, and she's a fighter. She's still working every day to day. So I get a lot of that stuff from her and my dad.
Well, you know what? I mean, I don't want to cut you off too much right now, but I just want to say it now is putting some context into what you've been able to accomplish in your life. And it comes from that upbringing, man.